In chess, the queen is 9 times more valuable than a pawn. But in some positions, pawns can actually be much more valuable than a full-blown queen. So I'm going to show you a game between Louis Charles de la Bourdonnais and Alexander MacDonald played in the year 1834, so almost 200 years ago, which is crazy. And in this game, Bourdonnais really just showed how you can use your pawns to just completely outcompete a queen, even if you're down material. So the game starts with pawn to e4. Bourdonnais plays with the black pieces, and he goes pawn to c5, which is the Sicilian defense. We get a open Sicilian, which turns into a Sveshnikov, and here the most played move is knight to b5, and then you play d6, and there's a ton of theory here, but instead he takes here, which is not the most accurate move, because now Black just very easily equalizes and tries to go for d5, and this is exactly what happens in this game. Black develops, and here he strikes with d5, and the game is just equal now. White doesn't have an advantage anymore, and now even White makes an slight inaccuracy by capturing this bishop. Now this is defended, and White gave up the bishop pair for no reason. This knight wasn't doing anything. The bishop actually was was a lot stronger. And after this, we just get castles with a very pleasant position for the black pieces. I mean, just has the center, develops this bishop, and then we get castles. And now pawn to a5, threatening pawn to bishop to a6. And after the pawn captures, Black captures back. And now the point is, now he's just completely uncontested in the center, and these pawns are going to become key if you're going to follow this game. The game at the end, these pawns are going to become actually key. Now the rook goes here, and again we push the pawn. Very simple game so far. I think so far the game wasn't so bad from White's perspective, because I mean White made a slight inaccuracies, but it's still alright, and you can technically hold this position. But you have to go knight to d2 here and finally start developing. What White does is a positional error here, pawn to c4. This just gives Black a passed pawn. I mean, this passed pawn is not going anywhere, and this guy here is really strong. And you can now never contest this pawn with pawn to c3. So this is an inaccuracy, obviously, here. This is not going to happen. Now queen to b6 is played. Just developing the queen and putting actually more pressure on the c2 bishop and the b2 pawn. And after bishop to c2, White says, take my pawn here, but then you lose, obviously, because of this check, you lose your queen. So that's not going to happen, and Black just develops to b7. And this position, it just looks very pleasing for Black. I mean, Black has all sorts of pressure with the queen, with the bishop. He defends the center with this bishop. He has the bishop pair. He's a nice central control. I mean, the computer gives minus 1.5. Obviously, they didn't have any kind of computer back in the day. But this is really a pleasant position for the black pieces. And now White goes to d2. And after Black develops this rook to e8, actually very interesting, rook a e8. Already saying, bro, I maybe want to push f5 later on in the game, right? This is basically the argument. And we could have also gone here, but then you say, okay. And this rook maybe then to the c5, right? This is probably what I would have done. But this rook, wow, very interesting. And knight to e5 is another inaccuracy, but it seems very natural, to be fair. And after the bishop retreat, we get c5. And after queen c6, again, we have the strong battery. So instead of here having always these mate threat, and like kind of f5 is a threat here. So he just goes pawn to f3. And now we go to a turning point. Now this is a turning point here in this game. Bishop to e7 is played. And after rook here, we go pawn to f5. And that almost gives away the entire advantage. Why? Because after queen here, bishop to a4 is played. And bishop a4 just wins. I mean, it doesn't win the game immediately, but it looks like you lose this. And I bet Black saw this. I mean, pawn to a5, this is not that difficult to see. see that this is on the diagonal. That's not that difficult to see. So what did black think? Well, black thought, actually, these pawns are going to overwhelm my opponent. Queen goes here. Oh, what is there? This is also hanging. After this, you just get this. And now you might already be seeing, uh-oh, this king is not looking too well. This king has some problems. Pawn to c6. Now in this position, obviously you cannot take this, because then this and this pawn is promoting this, and then this, the game is over. But you can play this. And this is what was played in the game. E takes f3. E takes f3. You cannot take here, because then queen a3. King goes here. This, and it's made. It's made very, very soon, or you win the queen at least. It's made in 3 actually. So this is completely lost then. So instead, black goes rook c2. And I am going to defend this. And now, black goes queen e3. Because now white can block this with rook f2. But white does not do that. White goes to h1 in the corner. And now, after bishop drops back, the bishop goes here. Instead of this, which doesn't really work now, because the rook just takes, we get this. And now you see black has 3 passed pawns. But let me tell you something. This game is basically over now because of these pawns. Rook f2. Next pawn pushes. Next pawn pushes. Remember, black is still down in exchange. Black does not have 2 rooks. White does. Rook goes to c3 is a blunder. Instead, you should have gone here. And after this, I don't know, retreat with the queen or something. Oh, no, maybe not. Maybe yes. And then you would have been able to hold on a little bit longer. But like this, what happened in the game instead was rook c3. And now, in this position, black takes the bishop, saying, okay, this is not going to be a promotion square, because I control it. It's forward. The next pawn goes forward. And after the queen says, uh-oh, what is this? If you can take me, because then I mate you. And he's basically saying, okay, let me push this. I don't care. I block with the bishop. And now there's nothing down there. There's nothing. The queen goes back. Queen e1. The queen does not have any value if there are pawns like this. Queen goes down. Rook goes down. Defending the rook after this, that would be quite bad, actually. So instead of that, the next move. The next pawn goes forward to d2, and still the queen is completely takeable with both pawns, but then you would lose the game. Now, queen c5 is played. Now you cannot take either of those rooks, because then you can mate it in one. So the rook just retreats and says, okay, legit, there's nothing to do for the white pieces here. Rook goes here. The next pawn, pawn to e3. Look at these pawns. Have you ever seen something like this? The pawns just rolling down the board and like destroying you. And now, queen to c3. And now, the game is over. It's checkmate. And after queen takes on d1, the rook takes. And now we get pawn to e3, and pawn to e2. And McDonald resigns. In this position, black is down a queen, white bishop. These pawns are unstoppable. They're just unstoppable. Look at this position. Have you ever seen a position where 3 of black pieces, if 3 of black pawns are next to like these pawns? Like, have you ever seen that? Like in a real game? Like, no, that is insane. By the way, here everything loses. I mean, this is just everything loses. There's no way. Even retreating this, there's just no way. You take here and then you make a queen. There's no way for black to survive in this position. So Yeah, absolutely great game. Absolutely great game because he sacrifices a full bishop, a rook, for only for these pawns, only for this attack on the king, and he just slowly but surely pushes forwards the pawn. This just shows how insanely strong pawns are in the end game, and not even in the end game. I mean, this was a middle game kind of position. Pawns are really really strong pass pawns. So this is what I wanted to show you. Hit the like, subscribe button right now. I see you in the next video.